We are on to our fourth and final set of the day here on day number 1 of the EU SCC and SOC Road to Worlds. Remember, these teams all competing 2 spots up for grabs here this weekend to play in the Smite World Championship group stages later on in January. I guess early on next year, depending on how you want to look at it. And then, of course, the Smite World Championships the weekend after that. But if you want to celebrate the SWC right now, you can do so in-game by getting your hands on the digital loot pack, of course, complete with Atlantis Leviathan's Gilgamesh, a celebration of their year last year, the run that they had heading into Worlds. Now the 2 seed going into this year's Worlds, one of the favored teams to take the whole thing yet again, and that skin looks amazing as well as all the other awesome content that you get in the SWC digital loot pack on sale right now, live in Smite Game. So a fantastic way to celebrate Worlds prior to Worlds actually getting here. And so we in our last set of the day, or our previous set that we had just prior here, we had a very close matchup. We went to 3 games. We expected after the top seed versus SOC matchups, Trelly, things would get a little bit more competitive. Got another one here in this group, but remember, as it was with the last game, first now you run into Hex Mambo in our previous set. Now you get a win here. You got to run into the Highland Ravens. But still very competitive here once you get in the mix in the EU SCC.
Yeah, I think so as well. The Gilded Gladiators versus the Aaru Scorpions should be a good one. They faced off many times in the regular season leading up to this point. And I think towards the beginning of the phase, started off a little slow, but as of recent, they've really been picking up. So I imagine, this is where you got to leave all your cards on the table. So I'm hoping to see the top of both of these squads.
That's right. But remember, this weekend we've got 8 teams participating, but we're separated into 2 separate groups here going forward, and so both groups you have opportunities to run through double elim style of brackets. So with over in Group A, you of course have Hex Mambo on top of that group. We'll look at them in just a moment. Here in Group B, it's the Highland Ravens favored group. They beat Thunderhead 2-0 to start off our day here today, and Thunderhead awaits the loser of this matchup, which is the bottom left side of the bracket here, Aaru Scorpions, Gilded Gladiators, and then of course the winner of this matchup has to face off against the Highland Ravens. Again, I think it's the same type of prize as you get for winning and having to play against Hex Mambo tomorrow. This Highland Ravens team just looked so clean here this morning. It was against the number 1 SOC team, so you have to take that into consideration, but a very, very strong team nonetheless. So that's over here in Group B. The Aaru Scorpions and the Gilded Gladiators battling it out. Over in Group A, Hex Mambo, the same start to their weekend as the Ravens had. They beat Personnel 2-0. That one was fast. I haven't seen an F6 in a while, and Hex Mambo got 2 of them, one in Game 1, and of course the other in Game number 2, so that set was very, very fast. And we've already filled out that bracket, so we have no more Group A today. The Niflheim Morgs with a 2-1 win over the Styx Ferrymen. So our matchups for tomorrow here in Group A already set, and Hex Mambo Wargs should be one to keep your eyes on there as well. So, Trelly, we've got one more match here in Group B to finish off our day. It's Aaru Scorpions up against the Gilded Gladiators. Now, remember, in SCC phases of the past, the Scorpions were not a consistent team in the EU SCC. They were consistently finishing towards the bottom. They were not stringing together a lot of wins. This is now an Aaru Scorpions team that has apparently really figured out exactly how they want to play Smite. Really surprised me and really started to come together as a team. And setting the pace is always the name of the game here in EU. The top 2 teams, so good at really pressing down the gas, catching opposing teams off guard. And I think the Scorpions, iDavy, Predss, GunTTeRR, Rapio, Panvich, this is a very solid roster, Trelly, that is very good at setting the pace and playing together as a team.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important, right? Because, as you highlighted, they didn't come out swinging to this season, right? It was at the beginning of the phase, they were really not able to find and string together wins, some roster change-ups, and ever since, I think this phase in particular, leading up to Worlds, I think they really turned it on and they figured out exactly how they want to play Smite, whether that be through the duo lane or just letting Rapio absolutely pop off in the jungle. I think they've got plenty of win conditions as well that they can play through, so as far as I'm concerned, definitely picked the right time to turn up. If you were gonna start playing to the best of your team's potential and actually come together as a cohesive 5v5 situation, this would be the time to do it, especially leading up to Worlds. So the Aaru Scorpions, definitely a treat to watch, and I think could be a real threat if they're playing the way that we know they can.
Billy had some of his own picks this morning for teams that he was expecting to advance through from the EU SCC. Obviously HexMambo, obviously Ravens. But gave a slight shout out to Aaru Scorpions as well. I think that if there is an upset in the EU SCC and SOC here this weekend, if a team that is not the Ravens or HexMambo is going to advance, I think the seedings tell a pretty good story here in the EU SCC. I think the Scorpions then have just the next best chance, gonna require an upset. Can they get there? I mean, they got a chance up against the Highland Ravens if they're able to grab themselves a win. So the Aaru Scorpions, a team that has really started to build up an identity and been a lot of fun to watch. Now, if you're talking about building an identity and playing together as a roster for long periods of time, the Gilded Gladiators may be at the pinnacle of that conversation. This is a team that through the Just F6 days and prior to that have all banded together, and they all feel like they've got a shared goal in mind as members of this Gilded Gladiators team, and have had some really great moments together as a squad, have kind of separated, now come back together. As a team, TottiGR, Rottwen, iSotos, MastKiII, and lestimics. 5 names you're probably used to hearing together at this point, Trelly. We're hoping chemistry can overcome maybe seeding differences here in this matchup against the Scorpions.
Yeah, that would be the idea. I mean, at this point, I think they've been playing together, and they have this explosive brand of Smite as well. I like the jungle picks from MastKiII more specifically. I think the EU SCC has some interesting picks as is, but it's just being able to say, hey, we're not playing the meta, we can play whatever we want. MastKiII can pop off in the early with these picks like in the Awilix, for example. We've seen that done plenty of times, but also those late game hard carries, those hyper carries like the Mercury, for example, as well. There is plenty of different play styles that the Gilded Gladiators have for themselves, and it's not one thing that you can just focus and ban out in that situation. So it's not going to be easy for the Aaru Scorpions, as you were saying, like definitely a top 3 team, but it's not like you get there for free. I think the Gilded Gladiators always have that opportunity to try and throw a wrench. And since we've been watching the sets today, there's even opportunity for throws. I mean, around things like the objective, you got to make sure your confirm is on point. You got to make sure your team fights are calculated. This is where you got to leave it all on the field. I
have seen more stolen objectives in one set today than I have seemingly throughout the remainder of the year. I look towards the mid lane matchup here in this one. I think it's going to be hyper important, especially in picks and bans, to really sift through what iSotos is able to get, what GunTTeRR is able to get on the other side. Can you enable those mid lane carries to then spread out their influence across the rest of the map? We'll see. Game number 1, picks and bans, kicking off right here and right now. And so, Trelly, I had a question coming on early into this weekend here, and we'll figure it out as the weekend goes on, how different maybe the SCC meta might look to what we were just seeing in the Phase 3 playoffs for the SPL. Feels like outside of some individual picks, the SCC teams, the SOC teams have kind of mirrored a lot of what we've seen at the highest level.
Yeah, I would say duo lane in particular looks very similar. I think it's mostly just junglers, right? The junglers in the EU SCC are sort of sticking to their flavor picks and what they enjoy, but besides that, everything, especially ban-wise, is looking to be pretty similar as well. The Aaru Scorpions are going to take away Set and the TottiGR. More so a target ban, but also a pick that a lot of the SPL teams as well are kind of annoyed with, so I think smart to take that one away, as well as the Gilded Gladiators taking away that Ishtar and the Fafnir, trying to focus out that duo lane. You don't want that big shred damage coming through later on, and I think probably a smart look for both of these squads.
Well, TottiGR has a lot of Smite Challenger Circuit history already this year. The big Deathwalker play that helped the SCC squad upset one of our SPL teams at Smite Summer Masters. Of course, a lot of that on the line here, that sort of the rumblings that we're getting throughout this weekend, which 2 teams are advancing from EU. Likely HexMambo, likely Highland Ravens. Is there an upset? Who has the best chance to upset an SPL team down the stretch and make their way to the Smite World Championships? Lots of drama still to be played over the course of this weekend, and this one really important for the Gladiators and the Scorpions to give yourself a bit of an advantage as you move through your group. Cernunnos, that'll end up being pick number 1 here, Trelly, for the Aaru Scorpions. Very consistent pick. You know what you're getting. Does open you up to potential double hunter types of compositions. But Kuang, you bring up reserved for some individual junglers. Absolutely the case here for the Gilded Gladiators. Must be a MastKiII favorite if you're bringing it out in game 1.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it a bit from adapting earlier on. I was wondering if this pick was going to leak into the other squads. We sort of missed it in game number 3, but I guess in set number 3, but in set number 4, it looks like MastKiII still wants to put some pressure over towards that Kuang, as well as the Cupid. Probably the good answer when Ishtar is gone and Cern is available. You want to grab that Cupid, has a good matchup into the Cern as well, but it looks like the Aaru Scorpions also going to grab that Hades, so getting some magical damage for themselves. You highlighted the double hunter composition that could come through. With a Hades, that usually takes care of your magic damage, so you don't really need a magical damage carrier in the mage tab in that mid lane, so you still have that opportunity. And it looks like with the Osiris as well, probably going to be in the jungle, you would imagine, just because Hades and solo. It's going to be a lot of auto attack damage as well. We just saw some shredding capabilities from that Osiris in the last set.
Yeah, Sarpei, remember that's a 6-seed EU SCC team that upsets the Styx Ferryman, the number 4 seed. So already an upset here this weekend, and it was a great jungle performance from the Osiris. When we talk about Osiris, we talk about Erlang Shen getting off to a good start.
Right.
It's that, throughout the rest of the game on an absolute tear. Can we get back to that? Hard to match that type of pace, but there's plenty of options in between doing nothing and what Sarpei just did. And that's exactly what the Aaru Scorpions hope they're going to get. So Cupid, presumably plus Athena here, Trelly. I'm going to cautiously assume for the duo lane. Do you feel like that has some kill pressure? We know Cupid likes to pressure things out in lane. Do you think Athena can assist with that a bit? Yeah,
if we're talking Cupid, Athena in the duo lane, Heart Bomb into Taunt or Taunt into Heart Bomb, always going to be a good beads grabber, and then you just wait for Fields of Love to come back up, do it again. I mean, the Cern does not have that far of a dash, not too safe. You're going to be sitting in that lane, so if Davey is getting caught out, at the tower line, maybe a little bit further up, I think that holding on to those beats, it's going to be absolutely crucial. But it looks like the Gladiators are going to go with that double hunter composition there. We were talking about the Hades that can bring that magical damage, but with an Kuang, you also have plenty of magical damage, so you're able to facilitate your squad with the double hunters. Cupid, Charybdis, slotted more towards late game, but those team fight ults, that CC they bring, is also pretty solid.
Kuang wants to scale up later into the game as well. It is double hunter here in game number 1. Danzaburou plus Cernunnos for the Aaru Scorpions, then Cupid and Charybdis over for the other side. And we have talked plenty, Trelly, about how EU teams, it feels like Hexmambo and the Ravens have set this pace, right? That they like to play aggressive, they like to catch other teams off guard. Still calculated to an extent, but maybe less calculated and slower pace than some of the other teams. A game like this, though, now you got a Hercules, so you got some sprinkling of aggression in both of these compositions. But do you think you're really eyeing the late game if you're both of these teams?
Yeah, I think both of these teams definitely slotted towards late game. Hades and Kuang, these junglers, also really want to get late game as well, so I think that's the call.
So Aaru Scorpions, your 3rd seed, up against the Gilded Gladiators, your 5th seed here in the EU SCC, and it's game 1 with J-Mac and Gore Miser.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave and Trelly. The double hunter was wondering, Gore, when we were going to see some double hunter compositions come out from the EU scene. It's kind of been a big thing in the SPL in North America. I was wondering if we'd see some of that trickle down over to the EU side. Well, it took us to get to set 4, game 1 in order to do so. It's J-Mac, Gore, Doug. For game 1 between the Scorpions and the Gladiators, your number 3 seed Scorpions, and picked to maybe be one of the favorites of this group of 8 to at least move on towards the second half of this and potentially be one of the teams to move a little bit further in. It's Aaru Scorpions going with a very aggressive composition, Gore.
Yeah, I really like what they've picked up as well, right? I mean, being able to have something like the Osiris in the jungle gets hands-on really early on. The Hades as well. Squishier at times. We've definitely seen some Hades in the last few weeks getting, obnoxiously melted. But then having that capability to be the huge playmaker, I'm having flashbacks. I mean, Nika got a triple kill on that pick in Phase 3 that was just absolutely insane. And so I think that there's a lot that opens them up. Plus, you talk about the Ares. I was going to talk maybe about his blink, and luckily for Predss, it'll be back by the time he needs it, but has to use it just to disengage there.
I'm sorry. I feel so bad for Predss because that was the best play he could have made. Ares has great clear with the fire. Makes sense that you would send him for the invade. But the unfortunate part of that Invader's Curse is the slowed attack speed, so you can just see how slowly he's swinging that sword to get the hit. You can see he was mid wind up for the swing that kills it. And Totti walks over and just hits it for, it only had 12 HP on it. So, all right, cool, bro. Thanks for my buff, I guess. but rotation from Rapio could get things going early for the Scorpions. Good stun, slows things down. And that from Totti is just enough to set up, make sure that Rottwen doesn't go down, but now a fight over the Scepter. Heart Bomb will hit Davey. He'll be able to drag that one away. Scorpions do get Scepter.
That's a small victory, right, that is going to be able to open up some pressure over here. Which, when you already have an Ares, and maybe the Danza to an extent, but definitely the Ares, you've got some of that pressure already to be able to keep things going. Plus that small bounce of experience, it's going to be in your favor. More so, I'm really watching Rapio. Not just a nice early gank over onto the duo lane, even though it doesn't result in anything. Just that presence of the Osiris, right, level 3, so give it, a little more experience. Is typically where we've really heavily talked about the Osiris being able to get hands-on for a game. So he's in that position now, and it's just a matter of time when we see a potential gank, where it's going to be, the kind of chase down he brings. A lot of it's going to be difficult. Level 5 is going to have the better chase down because his ult, but we'll see what he can do with all those slows. On the other side, Gilded Gladiators, I mean, you talk about the Scorpions potentially being talked about as like favorites, definitely a team that can make it into the top 2. I think the Gladiators, despite having some rough times throughout their year, especially there in Phase 3, not as clean as maybe they would have liked, it's been a squad that together has been able to make some pretty big splashes. Granted, there's definitely been, I guess, like just some Frankensteining, right? Like it's not the exact same Gladiators that we started the year with.
Right.
But when I look down and I see some of these players specifically, I zone in on MastKiII, I zone in on Rottwen. I know that you've got 2 pillars in that mid 3v3 that have been really prominent. I mean, MastKiII started this season with a pentakill in game number 1.
Yeah.
And Rottwen, we saw what Rottwen can do. Maybe one of the best supports out of Europe, just period right now. And so with a core like that, you got to think the Gladiators can at least put themselves in the conversation.
I almost forgot that Penta happened. And the funniest part is I was on that cast for that Penta. There's a Fenrir game from MastKiII. What a way to kick the season off for the EU SCC. Haven't had the same success, though, at least in phase number 3 for the Gilded Gladiators. They said a bit of an amalgamation of multiple squads to kind of bring this team together here. But a lot of it's still holding off the back of MastKiII, off of Rottwen, who is one of the standout supports at the start of the year. I mean, we go back towards like the qualifier stage for SPL. It was big for him. Maybe he can make some plays over here on towards Predss. Falling low, MastKiII starts out. First blood for the Gilded Gladiators and a kill for the Kuang.
I mean, look, that's, again, you show up to duo lane. Earlier, we saw Rapio go for the same style of play. Doesn't work out. You're now Kuang. You've got a lot of damage. A pretty good ult when it comes down to trying to kill specifically Guardians, things like that. Set things up. Comes out as about as standards as it could possibly be. And now you kind of get free room. I think he was already slightly ahead in terms of experience. Now you've got the net worth going your way, first blood gold in your pocket. You've kind of got free reign of the jungle for a little while. And for a hyper carry, getting online as fast as possible, that's a huge deal.
Ultimate. It's good. Rapio goes through. One more shot into MastKiII. But Rapio doesn't get the damage he needed. The burn wasn't there. And the zoning from Sotos with that ultimate. Perfect to make sure that MastKiII lives at the end of the fight. Bead's gone from the Kuang. Rocket sent in. Actually, he swerves away. I thought Davey may have tried to go for the commit there. Some damage, but maybe an ability or 2 down. Didn't want to make that kind of commit.
Yeah, Davey's been watching Wanted. He's curving the bullet.
Gotcha.
Man, I really jumped in for that one.
No, I actually haven't heard that reference in so long.
All 7 other people who have watched the movie Wanted are really going to be into that specific joke. No, again, it was one that maybe you could go in. Unfortunately, now not having it, you maybe find yourself at a little bit of a downside, right? You don't have level 5 for Predss yet. You don't have that pull. Davey, no ult available. Beads still up, so some safety, but maybe not as much. And we've been seeing a lot of this Danzaburou last week, mainly because Barra just would not stop picking it. But it is a pick that can do a lot in the right hands.
God, MastKiII just gets chunked by GunTTeRR and Rapio. Doesn't even need the stun from Tether. MastKiII takes away the red buff. Taunt gets Davey out of the leaf form, and now that's both measures of safety gone from the Hunter of the Scorpions.
And being able to try and jump in, especially while you have a little bit of wiggle room, the ult's probably going to be back up by the time anybody shows face over there. And so Davey can maybe count their lucky stars that they're not going to be completely helpless the next time a gank comes around. Downside is that now that you've been forced back, right, a little TKO like that, yes, you get the buy, and so technically, item-wise right now, you are ahead of Totti. You're going to start stacking first, but there's another wave that Totti just picks up that's going to come to your tower line by the time you're able to catch it, and I think Totti's going to be better off because of it.
Well, lestimics losing a lot of health, but a dash in from Rottwen, an 8-man group up. On the right side of the map, both the hunters are sitting there staring like, you guys okay? Do we need to come over there? I mean, Totti was potentially in position to rotate if a brawl started breaking out, but nothing comes of it until now. A pull in towards MastKiII, nowhere to go for the Kuang as he's locked in the Pillar of Agony by Panvich. Dash out from Rottwen keeps him from avoiding, helps him narrowly avoid death, I should say. But I can't say the same for the blue buff for the solo lane. That one is now gone to the hands of the Scorpions.
Yeah, being able to step up, again, small amounts of experience, but in games like this that we've seen out of Europe several times, honestly, those are maybe some of the most important little buff interactions. Small leads, JMac is what kind of escalates the most here. I also think that we have two comps. Like, you know, I see the Osiris and I talk about getting hands-on early on. I think the same thing. Predss now level 5. Once that blink is up, you have to imagine, along with the ult, since that's down right now, that's not necessarily on cooldown, but a very easy, hey, I'm either going to burn beads or I'm going to get kills. One of the two. Set yourselves up. And so you have some access to early. But when I look at the other side, you know, double hunter for both squads screams a little later. Kuang screams late game. I mean, very vocally. I mean, look at this, the damage he's doing versus what it could do, maybe with a little bit of help. Like, the execute is nice, but I'm looking for him as the game goes on, what MastKiII is going to be able to do as items start up online. If his build's going to be similar to what we saw adapting to, or maybe a little different. I also think with the Hercules, you know, leaning a little more towards the Gladiators if they drag this out the kind of normal EU style.
It's kind of funny to see the evolution of like Kuang builds throughout his lifetime. And here showing how long we've been, you know, following the scene for a while. Of course, you know, you dial back to Worlds 1 when Kuang was there, was constantly being top pick, top ban. It was ring build. You watch this Kuang swing that sword as fast as he can, shredding through everybody back then. Don't really see that much anymore now. You might see like one ring, like maybe like a Telkines or something like that, but it's a lot of power and a lot of lifesteal more than anything else these days. And it's allowed him to really deal a lot of chunk damage in a short amount of time. We'll see if MastKiII can get online towards that late stage. So right now it's about a 700 gold lead for the Aaru Scorpions. Nothing too major this early in the game. Experience fairly even as well, less than 1,000 in that regard. Aaru Scorpions keeping slightly ahead for now against the Gladiators.
Honestly, at this rate, this pace, I mean, Pyromancer, you know, it's still a minute away, but that might be, you know, if you're the Scorpions, that's a way to try and make a small lead into something, right? Build a mountain out of a molehill. But on the other side, you're looking at Gladiators being able to maybe equalize the game. I think Gold Fury should be in the conversation. Again, the last time we got to see a lot of these teams play each other. There's been changes since then that made it easier to kill the Gold Fury a little earlier on. Also made it just not shred you as much, so, you know, in this case, Rottwen could survive, or at least is more likely to survive. Then we talk about Secure, Double Hunters, they've got more burn. Who actually has any Secure this game for objectives? Hercules, that's pretty much it. I mean, not a lot of yeah, I was going to say, not a lot of true, hey, this is going to make sure you get an objective. And we've seen a lot of steals because of a Hercules. We've also seen a lot of coin-tossed 50-50 objectives. I mean, hell, just look at the last set, right? Obviously, objective steals are on the table, and I think that's still true in this set more than anything.
Gord, did I miss a buff recently with Golden Blade? Because we saw in the last set, Achilles solo was starting Golden Blade. Kind of makes a little bit of sense. Hercules Golden Blade is a huge head-scratcher for me. I mean, he's got good ability clear on the wave, but I don't know, I guess just helps him out in those little regards. Yeah. I mean, I guess put on display there, but Pyromancer to the Scorpions, as lestimics is not going to commit any of his abilities to try and steal that one away. So there's that slow climb up now for the Aaru Scorpions, turned into about a 1,300 gold lead for themselves. But I'll go back, man. This Golden Blade has really got me confused, man.
Honestly, and I think it is kind of like what you're highlighting, because when you look at it, right, 35 physical power, attack speed on Herc, not really that needed. Movement speed feels nice, so at least 2 of those stats. But then you look at the passive. Is that something inherently as a Hercules that you really need is essentially cleave autos? And I'm with you. No. Like, just inherently, no. You do not need this item. Do you want to keep up with the Hades a little better, though? This is going to help, right? That's really how I'm looking at it. Is it the best first item that I've ever seen a Hercules go for? Absolutely not. But if I'm going up against a Hades and I know that I'm going to get out-cleared because he's got stronger clear, better heal, just in lane, he's going to be able to out-trade me most of the time. This is going to be something that allows lestimics to clear the wave in a pretty easy way. Like you said, later on, he has great clear. But in those first few waves, you know, and now like approaching level 12, you should be kind of feeling more solid about it. But early on, you don't have as much going your way. This allows you to not have to spend as much time under your tower. You can still get the same amount of experience. You can keep up a little bit without letting Panvich get so far ahead of you that this Hades can just freely rotate out of the lane.
Tell you what, that talisman, he do be zooming a bit once he clears those out. Oracle Harpies will go to the Gladiators, try and make sure that the Aaru Scorpions don't sneak that one through. It's actually a tale of 2 different Hunter builds on both sides. You look over at Gilded Gladiators, they're similar aside from their starter item. One went for Cow, one goes for Death's Toll, and both of them going in towards crit second item. Opposite end, there's no crit on the side of the Aaru Scorpions. One goes for Xe, one goes for Kin size. We start to see a little bit of that built up by iSotos now. But it's interesting to see how kind of the Hunter matchups go in that regard, where one team favors this crit so much more than the other.
I actually really like I kind of a little bit of both, right? If I'm looking at GunTTeRR and iDavy, what are you most worried about right now? Yes, the Kuang, that damage is going to be kind of nasty. But really, it's the Hercules and the Athena that you're going to need to shred through. I wouldn't mind seeing one of them maybe pivot into crit, although it doesn't seem like we're going to get that. Having people who are going to deal with tanks, there's going to be some tanky bodies on the other side that are good for that. Totti has to use his beads just to avoid the ult. I was wondering if something was going to happen there. But Totti actually can be the next talking point, because as you mentioned, pretty much the exact same build till now, this last tier 1 for the Gladiators. I like the crit here, because who on the other side, early on, it's Predss, who is going to get a Spectral Armor. Later, Rapio might. But if Panvich gets that, I mean, we rarely see actual prots built into the Hades builds lately. And so you are, because of the Spectral Armor that Panvich just picked up, kind of ruining his build a little bit, right? You're making him make that choice. He's going to do less damage. It's going to be a little easier, maybe not now for the 2 carries to kill him, but to cause that trouble, force a choice that is going to make him feel awkward. And depending on how they go, I mean, I'm seeing heavy crit from Totti, but it might still be attack speed from Sotos.
Wow, that's a lot of damage now. 2 items deep in for the Kuang, and a 3rd execute kill. Will now make sure that this Kuang is a dangerous threat on the map. Still a little bit behind, though, compared to Rapio in the farm department, 3 and 2 on the Kuang versus the 1-0-1 for Rapio, about a level behind there. But another death on towards Predss, and it starts getting a little bit dicier for these Ares. You know, it's something that's always talked about. Once Ares starts to fall behind, feels like he tries to go in for anything, he just gets absolutely melted. Maybe Panvich, get a little bit of melting thrown towards him. The Athena ult, the boulder goes through. Panvich gonna do his best to heal through, but that's a lot of damage thrown back on to the rest of them. Does turn this around into a 3v1 kill.
They might
and now
get
their
more.
Rapio is on the way. lestimics, how far can your Hercules legs run you? Not very far. Panvich turns it around for the double.
Obviously, the Spectral Armor is not hurting the build. I thought that, hey, a little less damage, maybe that's going to help. Yeah, they dove onto the tier 1, but that was such a clean play. And Panvich may be showcasing exactly why Hades, despite the fact that he kind of fell from first pick, why he's been so highly coveted for a lot of these teams. I mean, you're talking today alone, some bans, obviously some picks. Just over the last few months, such a prominent pick, and that's what you get, right? Lots of good damage, decent tankiness, but the capability to survive in what should have been and felt like insurmountable odds in favor of the Gladiators, and some beautiful kills, a double for him. I mean, we were talking 1 level
They don't know.
just a second ago. Panvich now with 2 levels up the other solo laner over lestimics. This is so easy for him to make rotations like this, even though he's standing on a ward and absolutely visible. Being able to just go to the left side for funsies because now the Scorpions just have that kind of lead.
Yeah, Scorpions up nearly 4,000 gold. Gladiators want to try and shore some of that up just a little bit by taking this Pyromancer. Would bring us closer to around a 3K lead. Rocket goes through, hits Rottwen. Aegis by Totti, but the body blocks are good from Predss to stop some of these auto attacks, just not good enough to allow Davy to continue to fight into this one. The crit from Totti. All it takes is a couple of straight autos from this double crit Cupid. Chains are now off. Dash in by Totti, dash in by Rottwen. There's the heart bomb to land on top of the Ares. Stun is there, but is it enough? One more auto from Totti will do it. And it ties up the kills for the Gladiators.
But it's that question mark of where are you putting your kills. I mean, Panvich is the one that, as of right now, I think needs to die the most. Every kill the Gladiators have is onto the support for the Scorpions. Meanwhile, it's all right-hand heavy. I mean, 3 deaths on the jungler for the Gladiators. Really good focus by the Scorpions to get that exactly where they want it. They might even be able to turn around more.
Rapio's here, but so are 4 Gilded Gladiators members. They'll at least be able to scare this Osiris back. MastKiII goes in. Aegis gone from Davy, and execute is good. Call it. A 4th one for Mas. But can he get anything more? GunTTeRR boxing against 3. MastKiII too low in HP to want to continue this fight. He will back away with the rest of the Gladiators.
I'll give him credit. I was just complaining that all of the kills were on the Predss, so happy they get another one. And even more impressed that the Gladiators get away without losing anybody else. I mean, MastKiII was 1 good auto, maybe from Davy, dying after he lands. Barely able to get out of there. Same thing could be said for a lot of the Gladiators. So a good challenge by the Scorpions to make sure that that one at least forces a few relics and makes them feel uncomfortable on the Gladiators. Opens up parts of the map. But we need to see a little more focus. Now that Davy's gone down and there's some heavy focus from the Gladiators on the left-hand side, either Rapio needs to balance this out, or we need to see Davy maybe play just slightly more cautiously in some of the matchups.
MastKiII coupled with Rottwen. No ult from Rapio to get away from this. A taunt in. Beads are gone. Will the stun save him? Doesn't find anybody with it. Heart bomb on top. Rapio is as good as dead. But can the Gladiators get out of this sticky situation? Totti chased out. MastKiII down. Totti down. It's a 2-for-1 for the Aaru Scorpions now, and maybe 3 if Rottwen can't get out. Fear is good. Dash coming up, but Chain from Predss will catch him out, and it's a double for the Hades once again.
And right now, this game, it feels like it's Totti and MastKiII versus Panvich, right? Except Panvich has a great supporting crew around. I mean, Predss, that chain, so clean just to be able to grab it. And again, in a moment like that, normally I talk a lot about having to hit every Ares chain to make it feel worthwhile. Just need 1. You're just going for the cripple. Don't care about anything else. As long as you hit the first chain, you could miss everything from that point forward as long as it's setting up somebody else. And I think that they've done a really good job of allowing everyone to kind of get their hand on the ball. I mean, you got 3 assists here for GunTTeRR, 3 assists there for Rapio, plus the kill for the jungler. I mean, really good rotation from the Scorpions, especially after the aggression. That's double down for the Gladiators on the left-hand side, trying to kill off someone like Davy. Davy stays alive. Davy keeps, and well, now maintains his beads after getting them back. Eggs is going to be back soon, and you get the power that is a solo laner that is ahead. I mean, Panvich just rotating with the lead that he has made things really nice for the Hades.
Need this turnaround kill on a Panvich. Preemptive beads, boulder thrown out, but not enough damage.
No
Fire
way.
Giant started by the Gladiators, melting at the hands of the Gladiators. This would be a perfect opportunity to get a comeback towards this game. Dash in by Rottwen onto Rapio, pulled in, pushed right back out. Rapio dives away, execute is there, but MastKiII gets stunned out. Fields of Love have to be used to take down the Osiris, but that is a lot of ults to take him down, but all 5 of the Gladiators with fire.
I'm giving whoever well, I can't do this. I was going to say I'm going to give him a raise. He deserves it. I can't give you the money that you deserve here because that's fantastic. Whoever's making the shot calls on this team, they recognize if you kill Panvich, it's nice and easy for you. First off, it's a huge shutdown. He's 5-0. You TKO Panvich, who the hell's going to come up and fight you? I mean, you know, we saw Rapio step up. Nobody else was nearby. I mean, that's just good vision. You can see the ward coverage from the Gladiators, but also recognizing the scenario for what it is. Right now, as I highlighted, it feels like Panvich versus the world with a good supporting crew, but still, Panvich kind of standing center stage. Get rid of the problem, get rid of the Hades, the one who can really disrupt the Fire Giant fight. You can then go burn down. That's the glory of having a double hunter, especially when they've gone this heavy-handed into crit. You've got plenty of damage to kill off an FG, and then you just get to walk forward. The fact that you get 2 towers on top of that, plus a kill onto the jungler, I mean, that was just a really beautiful play. We're talking like a 4,000 gold swing up for the Gladiators. They were deep in the hole just a few seconds ago, and now they've got themselves an equal game. Primal Fury's up that they can try to take. Still 3 towers on the map. There's so much room for them to kind of maneuver in, and you just now back. Totti gets an Executioner. The relics are up for both of the backliners. You're only missing the blink for MastKiII. There's a lot of damage that's about to come the way of the Scorpions. Not a boulder, but pretty much everything else is going to be available for them. And I love that they can set this up. Probably not talking Phoenix time right now. With 2 minutes left on the power play, you're going to have a lot of work to do to make that happen. You can definitely full force, kind of at least strong arm the last 2 towers.
Gilded Gladiators, after closing up that lead, picking up a Fury for themselves, and now a Pyromancer will take their first lead of the game over the Aaru Scorpions. Tied on the kills, but now momentum in the favor of the Gladiators. Still, about a minute and a half left on their Fire Giant power play. What will they do with it? A tier 1 in mid is the start, but haven't seen much activism for the remainder of their map so far. Able to get a little bit of gold from the Fury, get a little bit of gold from that tower. But because that Fire Giant was so early in the game, doesn't feel like they're on any real timer or necessity to start taking away a Phoenix. Maybe grab one more tier 2 if we can have a group up. I mean, you've got double hunter. You got the opportunity to push, but Gilded Gladiators playing it patiently.
I kind of like this only because 3 really big team fight ultimates that exist for the Scorpions, right? Panvich, Rapio, Predss, all being able to maybe punish something that gets a little overzealous. The downside is you're not really setting yourselves up for a massive lead. By the time you hit this tower line, you're going to be lucky if you still have the Fire Giant buff as strong as you want, or if minimum you might have it for 30 seconds. And I think the Scorpions can definitely try to deter this. And then you haven't really got a massive lead out of this. You pulled yourselves out of a deficit, which is huge for the Gladiators. But you haven't really set yourselves up for a overwhelming amount of success just yet. And that's kind of where my problem lies is, okay, cool, you won the last Fire Giant, but you did it off of a pick and catching the Scorpions with their pants down. You equalized and actually got some gold in your favor. I'll give them the credit. But what do you do now, right? You're not going to catch them like that again. Are you going to feel confident enough to fight around the Fire Giant if you're not confident enough around your team with the Fire Giant to fight near the tier 2? I think they're going to need a lot of vision. We can see the items getting purchased, like a lot of extra crit in those tier 2s, the short swords that have been picked up. But I need the Gladiators to group up and kind of showcase what their team fight fully is. Otherwise, so far, what we've seen is a lot of picks.
And Emperor's Armor, though, by Rottwen could mean that the team is getting ready and geared up for either a defense or an offense.
Yeah, that's a team that wants to fight.
So they want to try and force these fights out of the jungle and in towards the towers. A great way to do that is to put a Fire Giant around your team's waist to get you that first little push towards these objectives. TottiGR picked up by MastKiII as well, so a lot of damage now on this Kuang. I believe all of MastKiII's kills, man, that's a hard one to say right out there, have been off these executes. Been very quiet so far this late game. Has been able to get a decent bit of shred through there, but haven't seen him really close out any kills without the use of that ultimate just yet.
Yeah, it hasn't been as much damage. Then again, I see TottiGR. Like, that's one that I'm talking power, just power. I mean, it's expensive as hell, but you are converting gold into power when you buy that item. So MastKiII has a little bit of that. Granted, it has eaten some nerfs since the last time we really got to see it, so it hasn't been maybe as prominent in a lot of these builds. I also think it's interesting to see Totti selling their starter in order to afford a Deathbringer a lot earlier. It might be a Deathbringer if you can get the right setup. Double kills, triple kills, we'll see. Definitely a huge threat. I feel like this Cupid has just been by and far. It's so awkward right now because it's like Cupid, Ishtar, then Cernunnos, then go down the list and just choose somebody that you're comfortable with.
Like almost everybody else, it feels.
Yeah.
Maybe a start for a fight. lestimics does miss the Earthbreaker onto Predss to maybe pull him back towards his team. Fire Giant started. Double Hunter with crits. Whoa, taunt. Off the mark by Predss, who goes in and finds 3 chains on the ultimate. Ends up pulling the mid laner, but Panvich has 2 locked inside the pillars. Panvich losing out on a lot of HP. He'll back out. And the onslaught that has occurred on the other side. Sotos, the first one down. Davy has found a double kill. Dash out by Rottwen. Davy has set his sights over towards lestimics instead. But a double kill to start things out, and maybe a third if Rapio can find this pick on towards Rottwen. Rottwen gets the dash away to avoid the stun, but the Aaru Scorpions have already done the damage.
Trying to pull him in. Oh my god,
What?
the damage
Excuse
from
me?
MastKiII. Yeah, you still die if you're Rottwen, but absolutely insane.
I'm sorry.
I was about to complain because the Gladiators you lose to. What 2 do you
My
lose?
bad.
You lose your backliners. And I am almost furious if I'm Sotos or Totti there because it's like, what is going on? Like, you should not be in a world where your backliners die and everybody else lives because, I mean, somebody pulled out way too early. Somebody didn't try to keep you alive in moments like that. Rottwen dies for MastKiII to show up, and I think we might be able to see him do it again.
Mast and lestimics, can they steal fire? Boulder is up for the Hercules. Can lestimics steal it away? He will indeed in the middle of 4. Great confirmation and steal by the Gladiator solo to once again keep them alive in this game.
Sometimes it all comes down to the boulder, man. And look, he times it perfectly.
boulder.
That's the best thing about that. I can't count how many steals / confirms we've seen this year that are way too late or way too early. lestimics just stands there. They've got the Hunter builds that they could have just turned, probably slaughtered lestimics on the spot. I mean, you hit him with a chain from Predss, you put GunTTeRR and Davy just turning their eyes over there, lestimics is dead. Instead, they keep the DPS up. They opt to 50-50 it. We were talking about how this is going to be 2 50-50 comps with the exception of the Boulder earlier. And you just kind of hand the Gladiators a Fire Giant on the silver platter. After Sotos and Totti respawn as well, you don't even kill lestimics after it happens. And so Rottwen is missing out, but what is Rottwen missing out on? After the damage I just saw MastKiII do, knowing that the carries are back up and both of them are going to have their relics in 30 seconds, now those last tier 2 towers are available for him for 3 more minutes of a power play. I really like where the Gladiators are at here. And it's just a solid play from lestimics, right? Doesn't necessarily do anything too flashy. Throws a giant rock and gets the most important kill on the board you probably could have gotten at that time.
He just hits him with one little boulder, says, thank you very much, I'll take that for my team, and puts Gilded Gladiators back in the driver's seat for game number 1. 29 minutes, we're pushing in towards tier 2 towers now, as only the one in mid and left stand, and now that Emperor's Armor is in play for Rottwen, I mean, lestimics doesn't have to take too much damage as he soaks up some of those tower shots, plus that heal makes sure that he gets a lot of it back. Before the Aaru Scorpions, you were kind of talking about it earlier, as far as their kind of team fight presence does come in. How does that look once you start getting around these objectives, or at least around these base defenses, around these Phoenixes? How does it kind of look matching up to the Gladiators?
So the downside is that 2 of the 3 big ultimates that you have on your team require you to get in their faces. Panvich, Predss, it might be a little more complicated than just, hey, we can defend. I do think with the chains, the damage that an Ares can do, I would not be surprised if Predss blinks forward, goes for an ult. Unfortunately, 3 pairs of beads that exist on the other side. And with the Spirit Robe, and I'm going to look at the build. Yeah, actually just the Spirit Robe, so some CC reduction, but not really much else going for Rottwen. So you'll get a pull if you can grab the support. That's about it, though, right? You're only going to get him. Anybody else that gets pulled in, at this point, it would be okay for the Gladiators to accuse them of throwing the game unless they use their beads for something else. Predss is only going to be able to get the 1. And unfortunately, that means, okay, where's the follow-up? If you go too deep, with the Spectral, the builds that we see on the other side, probably going to be able to survive long enough that you're not stressed too much about your capabilities of getting out. Can't really say the same about Panvich, right? The dash forward into the ult isn't going to happen too often. GunTTeRR does have a really good follow-up and or setup. If they group up on the side of the Gladiators, you hit them with that massive team fight polymorph, then Panvich goes in, that's going to allow you to be way more aggressive, maybe probably way more successful, and to control the team fight. And so it's a little more mixed, right? Lacking a mage at any point during a defense stings most of the time. You just don't have the coverage that you would maybe need. Cernunnos balances that a little bit because of the Bramble Blast, but it's only so much that it really kind of suspends it. Bramble Blast versus like a Whirlpool versus like a Crush, like something, or just hell, a Merlin, any of his abilities.
Rottwen starts out by finding a ton of Panvich. Predss finds 2 in the backline, but beads out. Predss is low. One more hit would do it, but they can't find it. lestimics finds a double pickup, but beads are burning quickly away. Rocket does not get blocked by lestimics, but Davy, Predss, GunTTeRR, they're all low. They're all gonna have to go back. And nobody on the Scorpions can defend this Phoenix Siege. The Gilded Gladiators may not have gotten any picks, but they're able to grab a big bird for themselves.
Yeah, a little late on the reaction time there for lestimics. Noticed the rocket, but was just a hair too late on being able to block it. Impressed, honestly, the Scorpions came out of that alive, man. Like, it looked, I mean, first with Predss, then you have to talk about Davy having to use his ult. It's so many opportunities maybe for the Gladiators to turn that around. But luckily, they still get a very large target. Maybe not the best target for them in terms of setting themselves up for absolute success. But fire minions are fire minions, so the Gladiators are good to get the right-hand Phoenix. Plus, with Fire Giant spawning back up, they need to be present. Again, last one was just a steal. You don't really want to make that kind of bet around the enhanced Fire Giant. And at this point now you have a hefty enough gold lead. You can feel a lot more commanding in this team fight.
Rottwen starts up the enhanced Fire Giant, but no full pull from the Gladiators just yet. lestimics acting as kind of the solo frontline for his squad at the moment. Wants to try and remove the bubble from Predss. EFG started, but it's only iSotos dealing the damage. Good bubble pop over the wall by lestimics means that Predss now susceptible to some of these taunts, some of these CCs, maybe even an execute by MastKiII. Now we know the damage that this Kuang has, and well, he had that when he wasn't full build. Now that he is full build, backliners beware. This Kuang might not need the execute to tap you down.
Speaking of backliners, my eyes have been on Totti this entire time. Beads back in 20 seconds. But until I see Totti step into the Fire Giant ring with iSotos, they're not engaging on it fully. And I think that's what the Scorpions could maybe play with. 10 seconds left. It's not a large window to really make things happen. And the Gladiators have played this defensively well, right? Aggressively enough that the Scorpions feel too awkward to try and engage. And defensively enough that nobody's had their relics forced, ults forced, or anything. Pyro's one thing, but I'm going to keep my eyes on MastKiII. This is a massive loop.
lestimics chained up, but Predss taunted back. Boulder doesn't take out GunTTeRR. The Aegis is good, but MastKiII will still find one. Gilded Gladiators have started off this fight well, but Rapio to the backline does not take down MastKiII. That's a double now for the jungler, but he gets removed by Panvich, who finds a double of his own. This Hades has been the sole factor to keep his team alive, and he is doing it once again. Davy finds the kill this time. 3 versus 2. iSotos, does he have the damage to take out this Hades? The Aegis is good to keep the Gladiators Hunter alive, but iSotos will have to back away. lestimics making sure that Panvich is in combat while the Titan is being onslaughted by minions.
Obviously, there's a lot more to it than this, but I'm starting to lean in a lot more to what I said earlier. It's kind of Panvich versus MastKiII. MastKiII gets to the back line, does a lot of good damage, gets 1 kill to kick things off, but it doesn't feel as clean as it could be. And then Panvich just runs into the Gladiators. Really beautiful play from the Hades to make sure those kills happen. 7-0-2. Hard to argue with the results that we're seeing out of Panvich right now. And if you can get more of that, then your team's going to be able to win. But ideally, and this goes for both sides, J-Mac, spread the love a little bit, right? I mean, iSotos was able to put up some decent damage and make Panvich a little more frightened, but having all of your kills, I mean, you know, this game, I mean, that defense doesn't happen if Panvich doesn't make that play. If Panvich gets melted down too fast, if Panvich takes too much damage at the beginning of the engagement, none of that happens. So the Scorpions, right now, it feels like their eggs are all in one basket. I wouldn't mind seeing, you know, Davy, GunTTeRR pick up some of that and try to spread the wealth for them. Meanwhile, Panvich, keep doing what you're doing, because you have single-handedly kept your team in this game despite the gold deficit, despite the fact that realistically it just should not be in your favor. It has all been just great plays from the Hades, essentially from minute 1.
Yeah. GunTTeRR is praying for a crumb of a kill to his name at this point. 7-0-2 for Panvich, 4-1-1 for Davey on the Danzaburou. MastKiII can just go ahead and solo this Oni Fury. Nothing is going to stop this Kuang from taking it down. That Fury doing quite a bit of damage back to him. Will be no problem for an Oni Fury for the Gilded Gladiators. And that's a great one to grab right about now to put a little bit of extra pressure in some of these lanes. Right side Phoenix has respawned for the Aaru Scorpions. That means that Panvich won't be left to dealing with those minion waves like he was during our last Fire Giant Tango. But it does put a little bit of threat around the rest of the map.
Makes it easier, right, for the team to just step up. Granted, they haven't been feeling too threatened by those fire minions the entire time. Now it's the Oni minions that are going to cause them a little bit of trouble. But with where mid is, honestly, that might be the one that's in most danger. That's a good early beats pull from Predss. Rottwen's going to be the one who engages.
Taunt on a Panvich. That's the one they wanted to take down. Pillar of Agony.
Kill him.
Locks in.
Gotta kill him.
But he's still trekking through all of it. Panvich lives. And the crush, the stun does not land from Sotos. Rottwen is almost out of this fight. And Rapio's going to make sure that he has the one-way ticket back to the grayscale screen. lestimics tries to walk in. Beads is away from the taunt. MastKiI's damage is big, but Panvich's is even bigger. Totti goes down. Stun on the lestimics. 3 for the Aaru Scorpions.
This is where it's pretty cut and dry. If one of these hunters, Sotos or Totti, had opted into a build similar to what GunTTeRR and Davey have, while the other one stayed crit, Panvich dies there, right? You have someone who can burst through all of that shielding, all of that health, and cleanly cut through that health bar.
Oh no. Oh no, MastKiII, he can't steal this one away. He gets out, he takes down Davey
Predss
all the
is low.
while, but now MastKiII fighting back in. Panvich takes down one, but MastKiII gets the double kill. Fire Giant might get the KO on towards Predss, and does indeed. So only 2 will get the fire. What a mayhem that MastKiII and his teammate have caused in the Fire Giant pit with only 2 now for the Scorpions.
I like that play though, right? If you don't do anything there, that Fire Giant's just gone. Instead, you're able to step up. You get a lot of kills. Pred's going down to the Fire Giant, and not because somebody locked him in there. Pred's just never leash it because they knew it was going to be low. If Pred's leashes that, they don't get the Fire Giant. You keep 2, maybe 3 alive. Pred's doesn't leash it, Pred's dies, but you guarantee get the Fire Giant. It's a little shaky, I think, for both squads as to whether or not it's a true win for anybody. But I see 2 people with enhanced Fire Giant, and one of them's a Hunter, so you got to imagine that the Scorpions feel at least okay about that one. Should be able to knock down some towers if they can get a grouping. Unfortunately, their respawns are a lot further behind the Gladiators, and so they don't have as many options when stepping forward as the others.
GunTTeRR might get
Taunt
caught out by...
kill.
Okay, taunt duration didn't even fade away before the mid laner is removed off the map. Now, it's only Panvich who has the enhanced Fire Giant for the Aaru Scorpions. This 9k gold lead doesn't mean much anymore, as it's only Predss who hasn't full built on his side. And now it's the Scorpions 4v5 on the defense against the Gladiators.
Damn, you want to talk about a stagger. I mean, 45 seconds right now without having GunTTeRR around. And just having a 4v5 means that you're at a numbers disadvantage, period. It's a 4v3 over on left. And I'd like to see the Gladiators push this limit.
Panvich does beats to get away. Fields of Love plus a boulder. Panvich needs to go down, and Totti puts him there. The Gilded Gladiators have taken out 3 now. It's 20 seconds until GunTTeRR is back. It's only Predss and Rapio left to defend. All they needed was 1 pick to stagger the Aaru Scorpions. They needed 1 pick on the Panvich to end this game, and the Gilded Gladiators do just so in 40 minutes.
Look, that one, you can scroll it back. It's really fun to watch because there's a lot of back and forth. most recent thing that helps them win that is MastKiII's play along with Rottwen around the Fire Giant, which is a nice tie-in to talking about them super early on this game. But then you roll it back even further. The thing that even allows them to have that kind of conversation is lestimics out here looking like he's playing DKO, right? Throwing a nice little boulder out there, and he gets the steal, right? That play, that moment, erases a lot of progress that was made forward on the other side. Gladiators get to take the Fire Giant. Gladiators get to take the fights after. There's a lot of stumbles in between, but eventually it puts them in a position, especially with that stagger kill onto GunTTeRR in the jungle, to just obliterate the base.
Gilded Gladiators took them a little while to get there, a little over 40 minutes of play to take game number 1. We'll see if they can keep that up in game number 2, coming up right after this.
On the flip side, maybe we can be friends when you're not so fragile, when you know yourself well, somewhere down the sweet line, when I do things for me, cause I don't wanna be a therapy, I wanna be free, so ooh, gotta go and grab a spoon now, ooh, make a life for myself, ooh, I don't know what I'ma do now. Ooh, but I don't need your help. Get out of my way, my way. I'm moving on up. Don't make me stay, to stay. I'm done being stuck. Get out of my way, my way. I'm moving on up. The last thing I will ever do for you is wish you the best of luck. La 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 la, la 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 la. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, I know, you know, it's time you let me go. Don't go, don't follow, cause I'll do it fine on my own. I know, you know, it's time I'll let you go. Don't go, don't follow, cause I'll be gone. Get out of my way, my way. I'm moving on up. Don't make me stay, to stay. I'm done being stuck. Get out of my way, my way. I'm moving on up. The last thing I will ever do for you is wish you the best of luck. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la. Get out of my way, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Get out of my way.
All right, we got another competitive one here in our fourth and final set of the day, and it's the Gilded Gladiators in game number 1. They're able to find the win in just about 40 minutes. A competitive back-and-forth affair that has the underdogs seeding-wise in this matchup. Remember, Gilded Gladiators a 5 seed against the Aaru Scorpions 3 seed. So it's the underdog swinging first here in this best of 5. And this is exactly what we've been talking about with the 4 through 6 Trelly in the in the EU SCC and even in the NA SCC, all taking games, taking sets off one another. The Wargs, the 6 seed, they get a win, something they've struggled to do throughout Phase 3. Could be another upset brewing here. Not without some pushback, though.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Gilded Gladiators, it took every ounce of energy they had and every big play that they could find in order to get the win over the Aaru Scorpions, because the Scorpions, specifically, out of their solo lane, that Hades off to a great start, took a lot, but the Gilded Gladiators had a lot to give.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those situations where it's possible the Scorpions also coming away from that one thinking, man, we should have had that. I mean, any game that goes 40-plus minutes in that situation, you probably think, man, if we tighten some screws here, we played through our lead, played through our solo lane a little bit better. Maybe, or more specifically, the objective play that we saw towards the end of that game. If it's a little things going differently, could have been the call. And I think MastKiII on this Kuang was an absolute force towards the later stages as well. When you let a hyper carry get to 30, 39, 40 minutes into the game, full build, was an absolute force, especially around that Fire Giant fight we were just talking about. If the Aaru Scorpions going to tighten it up, maybe. But I think the Gilded Gladiators, they were able to get that gold lead for a bit.
They sure were. And look, the executes were hitting for MastKiII. The Kuang looked really, really nice. There was also great play out of the duo lane. I was wondering how Cupid plus Athena might look in duo. Looked fantastic. Cupid, as if you needed more data on
Cupid.
Cupid and why it's a really good pick, a really solid pick. The win rate has just been so solid here this weekend. So that's no different from our SPL matches either, where Cupid has been prioritized. Now, Hercules was a bit of a curveball, and that obviously works really nicely with the skin that he's playing with there. The Fire Giant steal feels like a resurgence back into this game for the Gilded Gladiators. And you don't get to see a lot of Herc Trelly, and it's a relatively simple rotation. It's I guess a knock up, a pull, the kind of the push and the pull of the kit. But just enough disruption from lestimics that made life difficult for the Aaru Scorpions. Look, Scorpions had a 9-1 Hades and a 5-3 Danza. You're thinking that's winning you the game. But MastKiII enough kill pressure at 9-6. And then enough good, consistent team fighting from the Gilded Gladiators that gets you the win. And so I think I agree. I think the Aaru Scorpions probably go away from game one thinking that's one that we could have had. But also one, I'm wondering if it's those awkward wins where you lose, or the awkward losses where you lose, despite most of the measurables being in your favor, where then you start to wonder, do we need to change up our composition? What really went wrong there? Was it shot calling, or was it the way our composition was built? And so I think the Aaru Scorpions, obviously you got to worry about game two. I still think this is a roster that has their eyes on game three.
Yeah, I would say so as well. And the Gilded Gladiators, despite taking game one, I wouldn't doubt that they've got some picks that the Scorpions just had that they might want to focus out. For example, that Hades. I mean, they found the answer to it. Of course, they were able to kill Panvich once, and then once you kill him once, they're able to end off it. But, maybe look to take that away because it had so much of that early pressure there for the Gilded Gladiators.
I don't want to deal with a 9-1 Hades again. I don't care that I beat it. I just don't want it. It made life way too difficult for us. We'll see if the Hades ban priority for the Gilded Gladiators rolls through. Of course, the Aaru Scorpions in first pick. That means if the Scorpions in an area where they want to first pick that Hades, Gladiators are going to have to consider it in their first three bans. But of course, still so much power available given the current meta. And so really the Gladiators in a position now where you can say, well, do we ban the Hades? Do we leave Hades and something else open? Being in second pick when there's so many value picks, it certainly puts you in a really strong spot, especially if you're going to be playing some unique stuff as well that's likely not going to get banned. The odds of an Kuang ban, maybe in game two a little bit higher, but going into game one, I wouldn't have assumed it. And so I actually think the Gilded Gladiators with the game in hand here in a pretty strong spot. But it is an Kuang ban, so ends up being a strong enough pick here, Trelly, to warrant the ban. Are you Scorpions feeling the same way about Kuang as maybe the Gilded Gladiators are about the Hades?
Yeah, I think MastKiII just had a great performance on that pick. They were able to kill him 6 times, but the 9 kills that he had, as well as the top damage on his team, extremely impactful. And mostly the fear of an execute, I think, makes these tanks kind of go into a beads early on when maybe you don't want to. You don't want to give that free execute, that free escape away. Things to consider. But the Cern is an extremely popular pick. I'm going to call Cern the new Heimdall in this generation, right? Because for a bit, in the SPL, the Ishtar, and I think the Cupid are still that 1-2, but in EU specifically, this Cern has been banned more than anything. This time the Ishtar did get banned away, but still that Cern is the grab that the Aaru Scorpions are after, and that's 2 games in a row, and both of them, that Cern has been picked even before the Cupid.
Yeah, over the Cupid.
Yeah,
that's right, over the Cupid, which is most surprising to me.
Yep.
And so remember, it was double
Charybdis.
Hunter, and at least we'll get one double Hunter composition. I think we'll learn a lot here about what the Scorpions are going for as far as their composition. with these next couple of picks. If it ends up being another Hades, as you mentioned on the previous desk, likely looking at something double huntery. You can afford now a bit more physical damage if you're the Aaru Scorpions, because you've gotten that Hades locked in, tried and true. So Cupid plus Charybdis here, Trelly. I think that likely puts Charybdis over in the mid lane.
Yeah, I would say so once again. But the thing is, last time they had the Kuang in the jungle, that was their form of magical damage. This time around, Kuang's not available and the Hades has already been taken. So where is this magical damage going to be coming from? From the Gilded Gladiators. I think the double Guardian composition could be the call here. You could throw a Guardian over in a solo lane, that could help out. Or you just build a ton of prod shred. That is also a decent opportunity here. And it looks like with the Hercules, the Gilded Gladiators would be fine with a full-on run back. Unfortunately, they can't because the Athena and the Kuang taken away. But still, they're going to grab their top 3. All the same, might as well. They got the win.
I still liked what solo looked like there for lestimics in game number 1. The Gilded Gladiators did. Again, just enough disruption. Didn't have the big kills. Had a handful of assists there in game 1. There's just enough uniqueness in the way that Hercules likes to bring in opposition that totally disrupts. You know, it's a little bit in the kit, but highly impactful on the map. And so I actually end up really liking it. That ultimate, the excavate, so strong, not only for objective steal, but setting up fights as well. So now there's going to be some needed answers from the Scorpions around this Hercules. You know, I was actually jokingly going to say Hebo as potential jungle magical damage, but apparently the Scorpions actually find that somewhat threatening, especially now with Hercules locked in and your solo laner locked in. Gotta hope for something magical out of the jungle for the Gladiators, but to your point, you could also build something more shred. Now that AMC's a bit out of the meta, the Stinger maybe normally would have been the answer to just strip away prots, blow up a target. Wonder if the Gladiators feel like they need to force some type of magical damage in the jungle.
You can tell the Aaru Scorpions are trying to make that coverage because they banned the Capri for the prot shred as well as the Hebo in the jungle. Bacchus is going to provide good setup and some decent magical damage, but he can't carry that torch on his own. I'm really holding on to what this jungle pick for the Gilded Gladiators is going to be, because MastKiII, coming off of a hard carry like Kuang, you got to imagine wants that late game presence as well and doesn't want to just go into full fizz defense. But the Aaru Scorpions are going to grab that Scylla. They've got 2 hard-hitting mages in different ways. I think the Hades is a lot of that tick damage, Pillars of Agony is set up. Of course, there's some big burst as well from Devour Souls, but also just good control. I'm expecting to see the follow-up there from Scylla, and the Kuzenbo is going to be the last grab there. That's also some disruption.
Kuzenbo is about as annoying as it gets to play against not only the Nenes, but the shoves. All of it feels strong. Counter to the AMC, or I suppose equal with the AMC, you talk about the Stinger and Prot Shred there. Of course, Divine Judgment then for Nemesis has to get talked about. The Prot Shred, the Prot Steal, I suppose, and the Shred that can bring around. Also an opportunity, Trelly, if you're going heavily into physical damage in your team.
Yep, always going to be a decent opportunity there for the Gilded Gladiators, and they knew not like Nem's going to be grabbed, so as long as they're able to focus out those targets with Nemesis, should be just fine.
Do we get our second upset of the day, or are we going on to game 3? It's Gladiators versus Scorpions, game number 2.
Thank you so much, Dave and Trelly. And what a great story it would be for both of the underdog teams to come up into this matchup and defeat their higher-seeded opponents to move into the upper bracket. Remember, the winner of this one will move on to face the Highland Ravens for a winners matchup there. Loser goes down and faces the SOC squad in Thunderhead. What a great way to start out the tournament life for either of these teams to remain up in towards the winner bracket for themselves. As mentioned, this Hades coming back again for Panvich, something that was so pivotal for the Scorpions in game number 1, Gore. We'll see if he can hold that same in game number 2. Maybe a little bit nicer for GunTTeRR to get some big burst damage to follow up with him.
Yeah, I actually really like that change, right? I think that they did a good job with their carries. But last game it was just Panvich, right? It was Panvich every step of the way. And so being able to finally step forward and cause, I think, a little more trouble, and then specifically have that burst damage, someone who can rival and actually secure an objective, is going to be very helpful as well.
That's very close. I thought for a moment that Predss had stolen it because the hog came early from Rottwen that time around. Fortunate for Rottwen, he was able to get that final hit there before Predss could take it away. So purple buff was secured for the Gilded Gladiators. Davey able to pick up his own as well. And so now, Aaru Scorpions for Predss on this Kuzenbo. Let's kind of talk about the bow for a moment, because we don't really see this god picked up very often. A couple times in the SPL, I think maybe Nika and Neilma, kind of the two players who would go this one, whether you throw that one towards solo, towards support. And into a double Hunter composition, Kuzenbo feels like it could be a fun matchup for the Kuzenbo, maybe not so much for the Hunters.
Yeah, definitely something, especially if we see the same builds that last time happened. Predss is going to have a field day with the Hunters. Plus, you have to look at it. Admittedly, Totti has the dash, Sotos has immunity, so maybe not the easiest push targets, or at least secure push targets, but you're going to either burn beads or burn their safety mechanisms. I think that Predss getting active in this game is going to be very helpful for his squad. And given what we've seen out of them, it could be a big deal with some follow-up from GunTTeRR. Or if Panvich just plays any, like, even half as well as Panvich played in game number 1, then it's going to be net positives for the Scorpions.
We did see a little bit of fighting there in the mid lane, that one going in favor of MastKiII and Sotos. Charybdis having a little bit better clear than Scylla early on, just via those cleave autos with that first stability and that spike shot to make sure they can clear those ones out pretty easily for themselves. Imagine once these junglers start getting active in some of these side lanes, you could see maybe that's where the lead starts to sway for one team or the other. Gilded Gladiators were able to secure the first scepter of the game off the back of Rottwen, actually able to steal that one, the 2v1 earlier on. And I'm really going to be keeping my eyes on these two supports, Rottwen and Predss, see how this Kuzenbo performs against the double Hunter, see what Rottwen's able to provide for his team for some good peel.
Definitely. Honestly, man, Rottwen, I trust for peel, right? But you already also have some of the safest backliners in the game right now. I mean, Totti's going to need it. I think Totti's going to need it the most. Beads definitely going to be under threat, but you don't have a CC immune ult. You only have your dash. Totti's probably going to need the help. If Sotos and MastKiII can't get themselves out of some danger, though, then Rottwen's going to have to misplace some of that peel. That's where lestimics can come into the equation. Again, for late game stuff, lestimics is going to be very helpful in so many different regards. But first and foremost, it all has to come down to the fact that lestimics is, if not the MVP, one of the two MVPs of last game because of the steal. And I think that going back to not only the style build that lestimics went to, but also just that style of play in the Hercules is going to be super helpful for the team.
MastKiII rotating over, but I think Pred's a little too close after that dash. And a taunt by iDavy. Seeing the jungler walk over and immediately have to beeline away from the lane. Seems to be a pretty fun moment for iDavy. MastKiII returns some of the damage back, but it's stunned by Rapio. Slow again. MastKiII waiting for the dash. Ult in by Rapio, but not enough burn on towards MastKiII. One more auto could have done the deed. But now Rapio's on the wrong side of the jungle.
I mean, well, I was going to say only so much you can do. A blink is going to be helpful in terms of getting you out of there. It's also kind of nice that Rottwen's the only one that's continuing to chase down. So you get a little aggressive. But so far, nothing punished. In fact, maybe positives happening for the Scorpions here. Not overwhelming. Looked like they could have potentially got Totti into an uncomfortable position for some beads. I'd be happy to see Rapio continue this kind of chase. Unfortunate, again, that the blink gets used and that kind of mechanism, but you've got your ult now. And so I want to see more aggression like that, more chase down, more finding a guy in the lane or in the jungle, trying to find a kill. It feels like the Osiris didn't get too much in game number 1. I mean, a good gank over onto right early was pretty helpful. But Panvich was really the kind of shining star of the map. I wouldn't mind seeing Rapio do what we know he can do, especially on this Osiris.
Yeah, Rapio's been around the scene for quite some time. So I'd make sure I'd be able to put a couple of bets towards him that he can turn into a carry for his squad, but maybe getting active a little bit early on, get a couple of those kills allocated his way might go a little bit better for the Scorpions, because I think you're right to highlight towards the end of that last game where Panvich holding the majority of the kills for his team. Davey was able to get a few of his own. I think 4 and 1 at one point on the Danzaburou, now on the Cernunnos this time around. And GunTTeRR was starving for kills last time. He had some good damage by the time the game ended out, but starving for any kind of extra gold that he could have gotten to maybe escalate that build a little bit faster. Should be able to do so with some of the DPS that Scylla's able to put out in this game.
Yeah, I have a lot of high hopes for this Scylla. Crush Sikkim already feels like it's going to be a very helpful combo. I mean, you typically look at it, at least I see it as somebody who has like elite, is a little more frustrating when you're playing as Scylla versus the dashes that the Gladiators have. I mean, MastKiII, a single dash isn't going to completely get you out if you're centralized on a crush. Being able to catch Totti before the dash goes out. Like, there's still opportunity for damage there. GunTTeRR can also root them and have a lot of success in certain moments like that. So I feel like it fits well into the draft. And like you said, burst damage, in my mind, is just going to be good here. Especially when it comes to securing objectives, which is what I want to see the Scorpions kind of play around. They've got decent burn last time around, but they 50-50'd too much. This time around, decent burn on the Gladiators. Still technically some secure in that boulder. But that I'm a Monster is going to be the big role maker, maybe big playmaker for the Scorpions. And we've seen teams, I mean, and we'll talk about this, it's sometimes very easy. You can ride or die based on whether or not your Scylla hits or ults. If we see 10 missed I'm a Monsters this game, then it's going to be no surprise to me when the Gladiators kill the Scorpions Titan. Other way around, then all of a sudden we're in a very comfortable spot. If you're hitting every single one of those, getting massive damage out there, maybe even kills for GunTTeRR, it's going to be very easy for the rest of the Scorpions to find success.
Doesn't feel great for Totti. He has to use his beads to get away from the damage of Davy and Predss. Good blink by Predss. Cut off one of the major escape paths that Totti had. As soon as that dash went down, it was a dog pile by the dual lane of the Scorpions. Try and take the Cupid down, force either beads or ult, or beads and ult. Fortunate for them, they do at least get one of those. Beads now 2-minute plus cooldown for Totti. These supports have been going at it for like the last minute and a half. We've been watching Rottwen and Predss fight up against each other for some of these offerings. Try and get some of those trebuchets online for their teams. It seems the first one of the game will go to the Scorpions. Going over towards the dual lane could be a big boon for Davy.
I want to see Davy and what he can do on this pick. I feel like the Danzaburou was limiting in similar fashions to what we saw last week, where, you know, locking it in, if you can play it really well and if you have a decent matchup, it's going to be fine. But the amount of decent matchups he's going to have that aren't just 50-50 feel a lot worse. Throwing Davy onto something like the Cernunnos helps balance it out against the Cupid. Maybe gives him something to do over here in the duo lane as well, since Rapio's showing up.
Fight 1v1 in the jungle, a fight 2v2 in the lane. Both the junglers want to join the 2v2 and make it a 3v3, but instead, we will see Predss go back to Gates, losing out a couple, or a little bit of his HP and mana there, so not really a whole lot for Predss to fight back with in this case. 0-0 still on the kills. No first blood has gone through, and no significant lead either way here, as it's pretty much dead even game at the 9-minute point. The Hunters squaring off with one another. Remember, bead's still down for Totti for 50 more seconds. Davy still has his, can dash away from the stun. Maybe Rapio on his return can get something going. Or not. We'll just throw out the sickle, throw out the flail, and force Totti and Rottwen back.
I'm surprised. More so the careful nature of these two teams. I actually feel like for the Scorpions here, a lot of it is not necessarily out of general pace setting as much as it is maybe a little fear. Gladiators, again, coming in and you know, as a lower seed. But this is a team that I personally have a lot of hopes in, again, just because of, even though it's taken a while to get to the final form that they are now in. What we've seen out of a lot of these players, and specifically, you know, I highlighted Rottwen and MastKiII last game. I got to do it again, just because of how prominent they were, not only last game, but just all year as players. I think that they're going to have a lot more to offer as this continues going. And I'm keeping my eyes on the Bacchus, because Bacchus can be entirely playmaking. Bacchus can also pull a Ymir and jump in and just get shredded to death and not really accomplish anything. I think the Intoxicate can be really solid. You follow that up with a really good 1-2 punch, maybe from a Hercules, or a good crit that comes down from Sotos or Totti. And it'll be a very clean-cut engagement for Gladiators.
Push on towards Rottwen. Crush is good, jump out. I'm a Monster, fires through. But it's Rapio who comes up first blood for the Aaru Scorpions. Great setup by the team to get things going.
He took option number 2. I don't recommend option number 2. Jumping in and dying. He got pushed. I have to give Predss the credit. Predss with a really good push. Just isolates him. It's an unfortunate scenario, right? There's not much you can do there. Even if you drop the Intoxicate, there's no follow-up. It's not going to give you much. Maybe the CC is enough to buy you some time, but not enough to get away. And so for a first blood, well played. You get it onto your jungler as well. Rapio can feel good about that. GunTTeRR should feel pretty solid as well. The assist online. Small amount of lead in their favor, and you can see with the golden hand should be able to back and get the tier 3 soon. And start hitting even harder as the Scylla needs to. When I see double Hunter for Gladiators, it does feel like it's going to scale pretty well into the late game. But you're matched with that Scylla on the other side, and again, if Panvich can play half as well as he did last time. So I think that while longer games still help the Gladiators, the Scorpions have now put themselves, especially now that they're hitting level 12, second relics are coming online, they're in a position where Pyromancers, Gold Furies, and if they start playing the map, they can take a massive advantage and have this game not even end close. They could just absolutely steal it away from the Gladiators before the Gladiators truly get a chance to fight back.
I wouldn't mind maybe seeing one of these Hunters deviate from the builds that they had gone last game, where it was triple crit with Devours and Xe. I think Totty ended up picking a Dominance at the very end of the game for some extra pen. But I wouldn't mind seeing maybe a small little switch up there for something like a Kin size to kind of slot into the build, to go through some of these tankier targets like Predss, like Panvich, and even Rapio, who's building a little bit of extra HP already to start this one out. But we'll see how the Hunters continue through as the game does go through. Predss gets stunned in the midst of the lane there, but we'll be fine. Davey versus Totty, winning that match, and if not for the heart bomb stun, may have seen a dash in from Davey to keep that one going. But it was funny kind of talking about Davey. We panned over to him earlier on, gets out of a 2v1 scenario, doesn't lose out on his beads, and he pulls what I like to call the classic panda cat. Just taunt at him any opportunity you get. Just taunt at him. You didn't kill me? Taunt. I kill you? Taunt.
Look, and there has to be, we will make fun of it sometimes, and I know you'll see people in chat, but like, there is that element. I mean, I'm thinking of
Omega.
yeah, okay. Omega's an entirely different conversation. I was just thinking, you'll see that all the time in any kind of sport where mic'd someone up, and all of a sudden you're hearing the fact that they're out there on the field trash talking somebody. What do you get if not getting that from the taunt, right? You're getting in your opponent's head a little bit. And in moments like that, you really seal the deal of, hey, I got out of something. Or if I got, like you said, get a kill, get away. That extra punch of rubbing salt in the wound, that is the, haha, hey, did you realize, like, not only did you not get me, I know you didn't get me. Like, you had me to rights. I was going to die. And yet, either you messed it up or, haha, I got you. And that little bit of an edge sometimes, I mean, we've seen it take down tons of players. J-Mac, your mental strength, mental fortitude is honestly insanely important in a 5v5 scenario. For you and the team.
For us here, too.
Oh, yeah,
we definitely need that. Man, I think back to, like, watching some of Omega's old days. His taunts went to the absolute extreme, though. Like, in these cases, like Davey, or, we joke with Panda Cat, where gets the kill, taunt. So you didn't kill me, there's a taunt. Omega's would be like, I cleared my wave faster than you, taunt. I threw my Hercules ultimate at you and it hit, taunt. Like, he was, any action that he did that was remotely in his favor, even if sometimes if it wasn't, it was a taunt from him. It really got into the heads of some of the players back then.
Damned if he wasn't just good at Smite, though.
He was.
He really was.
He was just good at the game, which is, I guess, maybe what allowed him to be able to throw those taunts a little bit more often. I think maybe what kind of brought it to mind of Omega was the Hercules back in the old solo days. Then we don't see the Herc. We don't see the Herc too much to begin with. Don't see the Herc solo that much anymore. Felt like kind of after the days of Herc support started to fade away, we started seeing him less and less.
Yep.
I think we see Chinfu in the NASCC sometimes bring this pick out in the jungle. I think Big Slim brought it out one time. Same teammate. They just did a role swap for one of their games because the game didn't really have much weight to it at that point there. But it was always fun to see the Hercules come out. Always watching these boulder plays can get pretty exciting, in all honesty. I mean, we saw Fire Giant steal with it earlier.
If I'm going to take PBM at face value based on his interviews on this last Sunday.
He's running it down.
We're going to see a Herc at Worlds.
We're either going to see a hurt, or we're going to see like a circuited speed buff, maybe a steal of the Gold Fury. No good from the Aaru Scorpions. Unfortunately, that Shell Spikes is good at reflecting damage, but if nothing's hitting you, nothing's reflecting back to it. The Gladiators able to grab their first objective of the game and really kind of just tie it back up. The Scorpions have been slowly amassing a gold lead there of around 1,000. Now it's spiked right back down to even.
Honestly, Gladiators need to find themselves. It's not necessary for them, but finding a foothold at this point, I think would transform this team from like you said, from even into something maybe a little stronger. lestimics has some good rotation power. Panvich, we saw what that can do. Unfortunately, this is exactly what I was saying earlier, which is if the Scorpions can start playing the map a little better, yes, you lose the Gold Fury, but you get a Pyro. If you can just do that for every objective here on out, which is a lot, it's a big ask, but you've got a Scylla, so you should be able to at least rotate around, control some of these objectives. It's going to provide a very easy avenue of success for the entire team. Otherwise, we're going to continue talking about even game. And at 17 minutes with only 1 kill, you got to be able to kick
smite,
the door.
baby.
Yeah.
This is some EU smite, baby. Wouldn't have it any other. Actually, I would have it other ways. I do like the arena style of play sometimes. But man, when we're sitting 17, gold disparity is basically non-existent. XP, if you look across the board, a little bit in favor of Gilded Gladiators, about a half level between the mid-core 3v3. But with Gold Fury down, Pyromancer down as well, nothing to fight over. Seems like we're going to be getting probably another 3 minutes of this score.
Oh yeah, wouldn't doubt it. Now you've got Shield of Thorns picked up there for Predss. And so I expect difficult clapback, plus 3 Spectral Armors picked up for the Scorpions. At this point, yeah, I like actually where Sotos is going. I don't want to see another item of crit in Sotos' build. I think that at this point you just hard pivot because they've got 3 Spectrals. Make it so that Totti wants to kill the carries, you want to kill anybody else. And that way you can at least split the difference. And that makes it a lot easier. You have someone who can deal with the Scylla, especially with some openings. You've got a really good engage mechanism in the Bacchus and in the Hercules. Hell, and in the Nemesis. Meanwhile, then you have someone who can burn through Predss a little easier
Blink
when
push.
they get aggressive for stuff like that.
Blink push. Name of the game for Predss. Gets another set of beads away from a carry of the Gilded Gladiators. This time it's mid laner Sotos. Lose out on that opportunity. He still has a lot of safety inside of his own kit. Between the ultimate, between the whirlpool, he's fast enough to get those off to react to some of the CC that the Scorpions have. Feels like we might not get some action until these solo laners start getting involved, but it's only level 18s for them at the moment. Gonna push on towards Rottwen. Again, doesn't get much except a stun towards your own team. Sickum's just a little shy there from GunTTeRR. Seems that the brawling in the mid lane will cease for now.
Balancing it out, right? Get a little aggressive. Maybe bite off almost a little more than you can chew. I think Predss is going to be pretty much the engager. If Blink is up for Predss, we might see a fight. Blink is down for Predss. Scorpions don't seem to be looking for a fight. Panvich hasn't rotated at all. And so it is almost entirely reliant on just the Kuzenbo. The bow. But the problem, and J-Mac, this is where things always get to be an issue for me, right? We're 20 minutes in. I've voiced this during actually regular season SCC for these teams as well. When you are 20 minutes in, 1 kill, we've seen a couple of light skirmishes, but I wouldn't call anything that we've seen so far a team fight.
Right.
And so we're in this spot where you're about to step forward into 2 hunters on the, if you're the Scorpions, 2 hunters on the other side that have just been able to sit back and farm, which never is going to feel good. And vice versa for the Gladiators, you're going to be stepping forward into Panvich, who you haven't seen all game, but we saw what the Hades could do in game number 1, and into a late game Scylla. It just feels like not getting the opportunity while it was possible. Maybe again end up hurting. I think the Scorpions, they had a lot better mid game in my mind than what the Gladiators could do. But now we're going to be looking, 21, 22. Maybe, since we're waiting on the Fury, it should happen relatively soon. But some deep minutes into the game. And all it could take, I mean, at this point, with all the towers still standing, it's still going to need more than one fight. But we're getting into that territory where a single team fight with 3 kills nets you so much on the map that it's ridiculous.
Davey, bead's gone, used the ultimate early, turns 2 into the pig, but 3v1. No matter how much damage Davey has built up, he doesn't have enough to fight 3, and now Rapio maybe conveyor belting into the enemy team. Belly flop in by Rottwen, does not find the connection there. 1 down, the Hunter for the Scorpions means the Gladiators can now set up for the Fury, especially if they can find an extra pick on towards Predss. Watery Grave used, pull off the mark by lestimics. But with Rapio the only other one to maybe step up here, this should be another objective to the Gladiators.
And that's, look, that's just a smart play. They walk over, they force beads, they follow through, the Aegis goes down, Davey has nowhere to run because he's so far up in the lane. And that's out of nothing but comfort because nobody's been ganking anybody. You get the kill. It's a 4v5. Honestly, I'm a little upset they didn't turn to fight Rapio faster when Rapio showed face. But they slowed it down, forced Rapio to fall back, forced the ult as we saw out of Predss. And then at that point, 1 down, still dead, and just now respawning for Davey. And the other 2 kind of TKO'd and zoned out. It might be one of the freest objectives that you're going to get this entire set. You get to start pulling things in your favor. Wouldn't be surprised if they could do something similar around a Pyromancer. And so you got to be careful. I mean, if you're an individual player on the Scorpion, you step in front of the 2 Hunters on the Gladiators, your life is forfeit. Your Aegis can only do so much to try and carry you there. And so I want to keep my eyes on positioning for the Scorpions, vision for the Gladiators. So now that that left side objective is down, I mean, MastKiII, Totti, they don't really have much reason to be over there. I want to see them start angling for a Pyromancer, angling for the Scorpions, and angling for a Fire Giant.
As we approach 23-minute mark, a little under 2,000 gold for the Gilded Gladiators in the lead over the Aaru Scorpions. Remember, it's 1,000 gold earlier. It spiked down to even, and that 1 pick and a second Fury now nets them a near 2k gold lead up over the Aaru Scorpions. Gilded Gladiators have a little bit of momentum. An attempted backstop on towards GunTTeRR by Rottwen. But maybe recognizing that jumping into the middle of a carry and a Scylla, probably not the best idea, especially with Predss nearby for the extra lockdown CC. So he'll think twice of doing so. Pyromancer's up. Rapio and Panvich going to be the first ones to try and chop this one down. It is burning fast. Rottwen has an opportunity to try and steal this one away, and he does it again. Oh my God, Gore, how many objective steals have we seen today alone compared to like any other weekend of SCC?
And you know what it is? And this is all it is, at least for this set. Gladiators have been more willing to drop their ults for the secure than we've seen the Scorpion. I'm a Monster's up. You're over there. Go for it, right? I mean, like,
you're not fighting clearly.
The other opposite. Yeah, you're not fighting. There's 2 kills, and then on top of that, if the worst case scenario is they go for Fire Giant and you actually have to fight. And yes, your ult is down. Maybe it's better to hold on to it. But I mean, at this point, it feels like you're waiting for next game. Either go for the secure, or recognize that you're not going to get it and pull off. You keep 50-50ing these. I'm not going to be surprised anymore about when the Gladiators are able to walk up and steal it, because both of them have just been really well timed. The only ones using abilities on like, it's a boulder and it was an intoxicate, while nobody on the Scorpions used abilities to get the objective.
So that was 4 in our 3rd set. Now 2
He's got his
objective
intoxicate.
steals.
I'm a Monster would be back up by now.
Yeah, it would be. Matter of fact, can we get a pan over to see just how much Intoxicate does at this point for Rottwen? He doesn't have any actual damage in the build, so it's basically just whatever his base numbers are. 370. And that's without factoring any kind of protections on the objective, so we'll call it like a 300 to 320 maybe, depending on how high his or depending if he belched or if he chugged before he did that. A single polyauto is going to do more than that from GunTTeRR at this point. Just throw an ability and hit and take it.
It is what it is, though, right? I mean, if you're the Gladiators, that's a good advantage for you. I mean, you get the Fury prior to that. 2 of them, in fact, plus the Pyromancer now in your favor. And, I mean, J-Mac, you're starting to talk about a comfortable enough gold lead that I want to see right side portions of the map flexing. Plus, not just now charging their obelisk, they have a left side obelisk pushing down the tier 2 tower right now. Splits the attention. This might be one of the best times for the Gladiators to go for a Fire Giant. It could be pretty easy.
lestimics misses the push, finds the pickup to Rapio. Stun is good by Rottwen. That'll get the Osiris out. Crush tickles the health bar of Rottwen. A push onto Panvich this time, but he pulls the heart bomb. Almost to stun Davey with him. And now this is hi-rez has got to resustain. Luckily for him, he's got double lifesteal in the build. Fire Giant, half HP. lestimics off the mark with the pickup. Can he find the push towards somebody else? The Bramble Blast thrown out there for a slight zone. The Aaru Scorpions are maintaining their health bars, avoiding most of lestimics' CC, and in fact forcing this Hercules back out.
Still like their positioning. You've got, I honestly wasn't even going to factor this in, but after seeing the hearts, enough healing that can be thrown onto Rottwen. MastKiII still has ult. They could burn through this.
Predss almost gone. Sotos,
Gotta
somebody got to take him down. Wild Hunt hits lestimics. One more hit. He's alive. I'm a monster. Slams Rottwen. And it makes it a 1-for-1. Pick up on towards GunTTeRR. But Sotos is so low in HP. Does not want to step in. It's a 2-for-1 trade as Panvich went down. Harp bomb hits Rapio. Stun is good. Pickup gets the beads. lestimics forces yet another relic away from the Scorps.
Rottwen might be gone. Boulder's about to be back up. Honestly, I think that lestimics should tank this. You should go for Fire Giant. The fact that they're backing off here is actually, maybe a big missed opportunity. They still got 30 seconds out. Panvich. Predss will respawn. They should be able to make it back in time. Send a second trebuchet down. So the Gladiators, a little shaky on that one. But now with the face check, maybe the Scorpions have to fall back since they weren't in the process of doing it.
I love
It
that.
should be a pretty open Fire Giant for him to walk up. I mean, you've got Double Hunter. You're going to burn that no problem. You've got Boulder now for secure, and I'm a Monster's down. This would be the best opportunity to do it.
Love that recall animation. Because that's the one that plays the air horns, I believe.
And he stopped it, too. He
He
just
did.
wanted the air horns.
One of my friends uses that one, and I actually had to remove that recall skin because all they were doing the entire game was just backing for the air horns and then stopping. They were getting so distracted by it. Such a funny recall. I can't believe that we have something like that in our games.
I have an air horn app on my phone that Katie yelled at me for using too much.
Oh, Rottwen pushed in. Sikkim crush, good. Rottwen belly flops out, but Predss has gone so far into the back line. And the ultimate does hit onto Totti. GunTTeRR takes down Sotos. Rapio TKOs Totti from the fight. Panvich goes back in. This should be a dead Bacchus, but still another belly flop to get back out. Aaru Scorpions take down the mid lane hunter. That forced a lot back. This should be a call for something, whether that's fire, whether that's pyromancer. Scorpions got to get something here.
I mean, it's going to be an unnecessarily easy fight for the Scorpions. The Gladiators had a man advantage, a damage advantage, a burn and secure advantage around the Fire Giant with a gold advantage that was in their favor. Now it's 4,000, but it was 5,000. There's no reason that they should not have Fire Giant around their belt. There's no reason that fight should have happened the way it did. And I think that the fact that they've slow rolled it this way, it's kind of one of those, you know, the problems falling at their doorstep because of inaction. And now it looks like at least temptation is there. The Scorpions are in a better position to fight for a Fire Giant now. Meanwhile, the Gladiators are kind of scattered to the winds. They've only got 3 people here for a defense.
Fire Giant starting. Davey no crit means there's going to be a long burn on this objective. lestimics eats some poke from the mid laner. Totti being pushed away. Pushed back into the rest of the team. Double pickup by lestimics. Double push and a stun
What a
by
boulder.
Sotos. Sets up so much damage. Another pickup onto Davey. Predss is gone. Davey, not much longer for this world. The dual lane of the Scorpions are gone. And 2 of them at half HP will have to back away.
And I love this. Immediately, go for the zone. Make sure that there's only one person you really need to worry about. Rapio at this point, because he's getting aggressive, but it's that one right there, GunTTeRR. You have to watch that. I'm a monster. Fire Giant's getting low,
Walk at
and
him.
you do not have
Walk
the
at him.
secure.
Oh no, I'm a monster. Not this time. Gilded Gladiators. A little quick on the trigger. Before that, I'm a monster connects. GunTTeRR gets evaporated as soon as that ultimate was done. The Scorpions staggered cooldowns on 3 players. Rapio chopping away in the jungle to try and get back to base, while the Gilded Gladiators will just rush down mid.
Honestly, with that kind of stagger, force a fight. Go for the Phoenix at minimum. Predss is up in 4, Davey's up in 15. I don't think we're going to see him go for the end. 2 towers still standing? I don't know. I want to see them fight. It's just whether or not they're going to play trepidations.
You might be getting it here. Into the back line goes Panvich. How many can he take with his Pillar of Agony? The answer is absolutely no one. His own life has been strucken away. Davey loses the beats, but Predss takes down Totti, and that is enough to push the Gilded Gladiators back. A 1-for-1 trade, but mid-Phoenix gone opens up the door for the Gladiators' next push.
Left side tower should be the easiest knockdown in the world. I'm actually honestly kind of surprised nobody just stopped by to knock it down. Get a few thousand, well, 1,500 extra gold suddenly in your pocket. Fury's up. Also kind of weird to see them just back not picking up the Fury. Probably could have taken that, had the extra spending gold before you hit the base. Just adding some question marks to me for the Gladiators. Definitely not playing their advantage maybe as maximized as they could. Either way, an advantage is an advantage, right? Totti's kind of chilling in timeout for a little while. Fire Giant's on 4. So you still have plenty of wiggle room. Sotos with the FG buff. It's going to be very, very adept at knocking down any of the either remaining 2 towers, the Gold Fury, if they think they can get the advantage, the next Phoenix, but Totti's going to have to be there, and it's going to need to be a pretty convincing advantage for them to be able to start pushing into that. Otherwise, 2 minutes left on the power play. It's kind of up in the air for where they decide to put their pressure.
Well, less than 2 minutes on Fire Giant for the Gladiators. They'll start grouping up towards the left side of the map, though. Without the minions there, it'll take them a little bit of extra time to drop that one down. So now, Gilded Gladiators can start making that push there with the help of the minion wave. Totti gonna be a little far behind there. He's trying to go for some greedy extra experience. But Fire Wave in mid means that somebody's gonna have to be on duty for that one. It could be Rapio, it could be Panvich. The Gladiators now group up as 5 to the left.
They have a good advantage around this. I mean, Herc pull opens up a lot. GunTTeRR is nice. I mean, we were talking about mages last time, defenses last time, and having GunTTeRR on Scylla is going to be helpful. But look how small that crush is in comparison to some of the abilities the Gladiators are throwing out there. It's nice, and it's good damage. But you got to make sure it lands every single time here if you're GunTTeRR. A good route as well could open up a lot, but you have to play carefully. You also have to worry about the fire minions that are pouring in mid.
Don't want to leave too many. Panvich thrown to the back line, will join his support, but that Whirlpool form to get the Charybdis out. Fields of Love, lock in Panvich, but Sotos is getting low. I'm a monster, off the mark, Sotos gone, but so is GunTTeRR. Their burst is gone. MastKiII finds one, triple knock up by Rottwen to set things up. Set him up for MastKiII, that's a double for the jungler. Make it nearly a triple, but Rottwen picks up the double at the end. It is a deicide for the Gilded Gladiators. Game 2 and the set to the underdogs.
I mean, look, they play that one so well. Again, a couple of moments. Maybe they could get aggressive faster. Maybe they could open up a lot. But the Scorpions just don't leverage one of their massive advantages. Having the Scylla in that mid game, having anything in that mid game, they're secure, just being stronger. Did not get utilized as early as it could. The Gladiators capitalize on the situation. They start getting objectives. They start looking for fights. I mean, we went like 23 minutes, 24 minutes with only 2 kills on the board, and suddenly you're just saying, okay, cool, now step into a double hunter composition and fight. Like, it's not going to work out well for you. The Gladiators bide their time. I think they play that one well. It was on the Scorpions to try and step up. They didn't do it, and now they're going to be sitting down in the lower portion of the groups trying to fight their way back up.
Yeah, I think a lot of it does come down to what you were saying. You know, once you are waiting for 20, 25 minutes to fight, those fights become way more impactful than, oh no, I lost a 2v2 at 5 versus a 2v2 or a 5v5 at 25. Gilded Gladiators take the 2-0 dub. That's it for me and Gore. We'll throw it back over to Des to close it out.
It's the day the underdogs down the stretch here, not so much the SOC underdogs, but the SCC underdogs taking out the SCC favorites in our last couple of sets of the day in the Gilded Gladiators, the most recent to do so. This one, 2-0, does not go the distance here, Trillian. I think that speaks volumes. Again, I think to the chemistry that this Gilded Gladiators team has built up over time. Let's not mince words. We get 20 minutes with 1 kill.
Yep.
And so we're all building up to these later on game fights. Not that the Scorpions don't have chemistry, they're a very solid squad, but it's the pin perfect shot calling that needs to happen when the fights matter as much as they do later in the game. The margin of error decreases significantly when you're fighting for the first time at 20-something minutes.
Yeah, I was very impressed once again with the duo lane of the Gilded Gladiators here. I mean, Rottwen hitting massive knockups on the Bacchus wasn't doing too much damage, but that's not really what Bacchus is for. It's all about that setup and that disruption. And I think Totti as well, the Cupid, really a shining light. I think a ton of damage, I believe top in the game on the Cupid was absolutely popping off, and that is all from good setup from Rottwen, as well as MastKiII on the Nemesis, shredding protection, so this double hunter composition really could flourish as well. It's very difficult when you got 4 Fizz and only a Bacchus to try and carry that magical damage. When you're sort of setting up with your Nemesis and following through on that amount of protection steal, really can make that late game much, much easier.
The steal from Rottwen got a chuckle out of Gormizer, and really a big difference maker early in this game. Again, when the margins are so thin, something like a Pyromancer can ultimately be the difference maker, and so a small moment, not only mentally, but literally golden experience-wise on the map, does make a difference. I mean, look, that's kills like 3, 4, and 5 for the Gilded Gladiators at the 20-minute mark. We fight one more time here at the end of the game, and this, right at the end, I don't know if we'll get the belly flop back in, but just prior to that from Rottwen, crazy 3-man knockup, and so some individual plays down the stretch, ultimately the difference maker. What a treat to watch the Gilded Gladiators here in Game 2, because Trelly, Game 1, you know, the Aaru Scorpions stats-wise probably looked like the better team, especially in solo, especially in AD carry, but this is a game where the Gilded Gladiators buy their time, and their team fight looks much better off for it. The question ends up becoming, can this Gilded Gladiators team now beat the Highland Ravens in a best-of-3? It's a tall task.
That is a tall task, and I believe, you know, they look good here. Let's focus on that, because it's not going to be easy. You don't got to focus on tomorrow.
You're so diplomatic, Trilly.
I mean, I just think it's a tall ask for any one of these squads to say,
No,
hey,
you're right.
you know, the Highland Ravens and Hex Mambo sitting at the top of the standing, so let's just focus on the fact that they got through the first upset, and they're probably feeling confident about that one. Another thing, they didn't ban out that Hades. That's something we talked about before. You know, Panvich had such a good game on this Hades. Would they be able to shut it down like they killed him once in game number 1? Turns out, yeah, they were able to mitigate a lot of what that Hades was supposed to do in game number 2. So easy change up there for the Gilded Gladiators.
And so, Trelly, to start our day, we had the SCC number 1 and number 2 seed playing the SOC number 2 and number 1 seed. Those matches go about as expected. Now, down the stretch is where things change. This is Group B. This is the match we just played, and that's the Gilded Gladiators 2-0 over the Aaru Scorpions. The Highland Ravens beat up on Thunderhead to start the day. You know, almost unfortunately so for Thunderhead. You know, you're thinking if everything goes according to seeding, Thunderhead are then going to go up against the 5th-seeded SCC team, which is, you know, maybe a closer matchup for the number 1 SOC team. You know, if you're purely numbers-wise, you're talking about a couple seeding points separating those two. Because of an upset here from the Gilded Gladiators, they're now going up against the number 3 SCC team. So they lost to the number 2 SCC team this morning, and now because of an upset, Thunderhead will be playing up against Aaru Scorpions tomorrow. And so that'll be a very, very close matchup. And you're looking at match 8. That'll be an advance to the Elim stage a bit later on. So we're in the same exact spot over in Group A. Of course, that is how we started off our day. Hex Mambo, a 2-0 win over the SOC team. And then again, this one an upset, maybe not as crazy. It's the number 6 seed, but again, it's crazy because the Wargs hadn't found much consistency during Phase 3. That one's a 3-game set, Wargs over the Styx Ferryman. They'll go on to play Hex Mambo tomorrow. And then, of course, Personnel versus Styx Ferryman now is the matchup we've got. I think that one's sneaky interesting then, Trelly. I mean, Personnel got a lot of turnaround to be doing prior to going up against the Styx Ferryman. And so I think tomorrow's matchups, if you're looking purely at seeding, would give you the indication that they'd be lopsided again. Because we had upsets in these last 2 matches, it means the lower-seeded SCC teams going up against the higher-seeded SCC teams, and the higher-seeded SCC teams then playing against the SOC teams tomorrow, just because of the way all that broke down. But today showed us, especially at the end, some of these EU SEC matches can get a little crazy. So I don't know if we're done with the upsets yet for the weekend.
Yeah, I would consider that maybe because these teams are so used to playing from ahead and they got upset, maybe playing against the underdogs is what's getting to them. So just because, yeah, maybe the number 1 and number 2 SOC teams is going to be a little spooky for them.
It's a mental game here, to be sure. This is the first day in the EU SEC/SOC road to Worlds. As expected for the top seeds, and then some upsets down the stretch. Will we get some more? We've got another 4 best-of-3 sets of SCC and SOC action tomorrow. You don't want to miss it live right here at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, twitch.tv/MikeGame. I've been Dolson, that's been Troy on behalf of us, the other casters, everyone back in production. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.